Hello, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kevin Nealon. Our top story tonight, it appears congratulations are in order. We are monitoring things closely as details continue to come in, but it seems, yes, I have confirmation. We're talking about you, Joseph. Congratulations. You really outdid yourself this time, which probably wasn't that hard. Our team has discovered footage from one of the many celebrations taking place in your honor. Stay away from drugs, kids. Now for some deeper analysis, let's go live via satellite to our special guest commentator, Other Kevin. Other Kevin, what are your thoughts on all this? Speechless, Kevin. Wow. Just wow. Insightful as always. Thank you. Well, I'm now being told that we are out of time and that I should pull this lever. I'm Kevin Nealon. Thanks for watching. Take care, Jimmy. Thanks, Bob.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. I'm kind of famous. I'm Jerry Springer. And Jaffe is no host. He'd be lucky to be in my audience, let alone on my show. Well, maybe he's crazy enough to be on my show. I take that back. And that's not a good thing.
This is my best kind of show notes. We didn't touch one of them, not even one of them. I'm not sure which one is Paul Rudd and which one is Lane Green.
Final card here is the ultimate outcome.
Today is Take Your Dog to Work Day.
Or like Scooby-Doo.
Without further ado, his debut.
Sweet Caroline.
Everybody say hello to Sammy. Is it not good?
I'm just pausing so that you just are at the front of your seat.
I'm so enormously flattered.
Branding is not a bad blind date.
I'm gonna have to take a picture of this.
No, this is agape. This is love.
I really enjoyed this. You did do your homework. You asked great questions.
I'm flattered. Thank you. You just made my day.
Look at you! You are insane!
How did I do that?
You're
How
insane!
did I do that?
You're insane.
Look, I gotta tell you, I feel like a big fake, like a big fraud, and I'll tell you why. Because my guest today, the Gordon Glenister, he sounds like a secret agent. Maybe he is a secret agent. The name is Glenister, Gordon Glenister. He said to me, I've never experienced such communication, so much communication. Maybe he wasn't referring to the quality, but maybe the quantity of communication. And it's so funny because people say, you're such a great communicator, Joe. And you're such a great listener. You're such an active listener. But not in my house. In my house, my wife says, I suck at communication. And she says that I do not listen. I just talk all the time. So which is the real Jaffe? That's the question. Which is the real Joseph Jaffe? Are you a man or a mouse? Squeak up, as the old squeak up, as the saying goes. But anyway, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have Gordon on the show to talk about influence. And you know, I always love the conversations about influence because what is it? What is it not? What should it be? What could it be? We need to talk to the experts, and I've been fortunate enough to talk to people like Bob Cialdini, who wrote a book called Influence, the book called Influence. Well, the book until Gordon's book, of course. So now you have two books. We're triangulating. So I've got a bunch of things to share with you. I have been busy, speaking of building, and the first is the relaunch of my creator coin, the Jaffe coin, a token that really governs the Jaffe economy, the Jaffe ecosystem, the ability to build and monetize and tokenize a community. It's something that I experimented with through rally.io for, I don't know, about a year, maybe almost 2 years. And that didn't work out so great. and now I'm taking it in myself. So this is kind of what the holding page looks like. And if you go to jaffe.cedar.app, you can actually find out a little bit more about what I'm doing, what I'm building. You can buy Jaffe coin. Hopefully you can sell Jaffe coin, but hopefully you won't do that for a while. And I'll be sharing my strategy in terms of how I not only am going to build out this community together with you, but also how you might choose to build your own community. And I'm a big believer that every creator, every influencer, every personal brand, and every corporate brand will have some kind of a token that governs loyalty, advocacy, influence, content creation, contribution, tenure, and so many more facets. So you can buy the coin, you can hold the coin, you can redeem the coin, you can exchange the coin, you can gift the coin. We're going to have a lot of fun together, and we're going to learn together. We won't always get it right. We'll probably get it wrong more often, but when we do get it wrong, we'll get it wrong together, and we'll learn from it, and we will grow from it as well. Something else that I'm very proud of is every single Monday through Friday, 8 to 9 a.m., which is 1 to 2 p.m. in the UK, Gordon, if you want to join us as well. We do a virtual coffee. We manifest on Mondays. We have no agenda Fridays. We do live book reads on Thursday, and on Tuesday and Wednesday, it's just focused on thought leadership. We've been doing this every single weekday since August. And if you want to find out what it's all about, you can actually come and join us live. It's free. It always will be free. There is no hook. There is no cut, bait and switch. There are no strings attached other than just hanging out and really nurturing and feeding our hearts, our souls, our minds every single morning. Reciprocity is one of the biggest and most important, and generosity and empathy, but reciprocity is really what makes the world, paying it forward, but also making sure that everybody wins. So you can do that at discord.gg/Alpha Collective. And if you can't make it live for whatever reason, it's now a podcast. And within 10 or 15 minutes of us finishing, I have the show live on the interwebs. And you can subscribe to the show on bit.ly/collective cafe to go. One final thing, I just returned from Las Vegas, Lost Wages, and delivered a keynote called A Prescriptive, Proactive, Predictive, Retroactive Perspective, because everybody wants to know, how can we be innovative and disruptive, and what's the next big thing? But oh, by the way, how do we also play it safe and conservative, not take too many risks, and be able to find the balance between being conservative and focusing on the cash cow during tough recessionary times, but still, of course, changing the game. How do you do both? You're between a rock and a hard place. The Scream is a very, very accurate depiction as well. And if you are interested in watching this webinar, again, for free, just go to my Linktree, linktree.com or linktr.ee/Jaffe Juice, and you will be able to access it there. So that is it from housekeeping, except for a chair that belongs to the seated soliloquy, because it's time now for my monologue, which of course is homaged. Can you say that? Fromaged. It is in honor of my guest, Gordon Glenister, and it is called Faking Influence. I am fascinated, to be honest with you, with influence. I'm more fascinated on the ability for us to demystify, debunk, and create strategic influence. Everyone is an influencer at something. Everyone is credible at something, specifically something that they're passionate about, that they've worked on for a long time, that they've earned their 10,000 hours. And yet everybody wants to be an expert. Everybody now with social media believes have social media will influence. And the reality is, and I heard this from an a retired NFL football star who started a company. I actually met him in Vegas at CES many, many years ago. Unfortunately, the company didn't make it, like many small businesses don't. But I loved what he told me. I never forgot it. He said to me, you know, Joe, while I was in the NFL, I got all these sponsorship deals and all these endorsements, they didn't know me. They had no idea who I was, what I liked, what I didn't like, where I was influential or not. That was popularity. And he said to me, there's a huge difference between influence and popularity. Popularity is quant and influence is qual, right? Quality versus quantity. And I think today in the social media world, there is so much not, I've often said you can't fake authenticity. Well, guess what? You can't fake influence either. And yet, too many people are doing it. Too many people are creating smoke and mirrors and the appearance of influence through likes and follows and retweets and coercing and incentivizing and essentially greasing the wheels, paying for play. That is not influence. And I guess the question, and Gordon's the perfect person to talk about it, is whose fault is it? Is it the fault of the platform? Is it the fault of the actual faker? Or is it us? Are we gullible? Is it shame on us for being so gullible, for being lazy, for allowing ourselves to be fooled and faked, as opposed to making up our minds for ourselves and being a little bit more discerning and realizing that things are not always what they appear. So, some thoughts for you as we bring on the expert, maybe the influencer too. Is he the influencer's influencer? Can he influence the influencer? Well, time will tell. And you know what will tell even more than a bio? His content, his thought leadership. And he is actually one of the more influential people. Gordon Glenister is a global influencer marketing expert, host of Influence, the global podcast, and best-selling author of Influencer Marketing Strategy. Gordon founded the Branded Content Marketing Association Influencer Division in 2018 and is a keynote speaker on influencer marketing. He's also a writer for the London Evening Standard, and I think he's kind of included in every single top 10, 20, 30, 40 list when it comes to influencers that count. I'm always number 11, 21, 31, 41. But you know what? We can continue to dream, can't we? Gordon, welcome to the show.
Oh, welcome. I have to say, I've been mesmerized by watching this. This has to be the best introduction I have ever, and I've been on a few podcasts in my time, Joseph, but you have completely nailed it for me. That's you indeed are. You talk about me being an influencer. Well, I think you are.
It's all smoke and mirrors. It's all. I'm just an avatar. This is the metaverse.
You did make me laugh, and particularly the bit about double agent. I love that.
So, I mean, for sure. I just hope that you're on my side at the end of the day. Don't take me out. I promise to be good. I promise to be good. We'll talk a lot about the book. By the way, I actually just love the simplicity of the hashtag and then the little bubble inside the hashtag. That's beautifully designed as well. And it obviously show it, damn it, show it.
Well, I'm going to show you this. Right? Can you see this? Is the UK version, but I also want to show you this.
Ooh.
Because this is the Portuguese version. Look at that for a cover.
Wow. What is even going on there?
Well, it shows you the importance and value of what influencer is. So it starts with one over here, and that's the replication. So,
and it actually it flaps open as well.
Isn't that amazing? It's all in Portuguese.
Obrigado, muito obrigado, pa.
Yeah, obrigado. Yes. My girlfriend is Portuguese as well, but that's by complete coincidence.
Mine is too. Don't tell my wife. But I actually started my career working for a Portuguese company, which you probably would know very well, called Nando's Chicken Land.
Oh, indeed. Yeah.
I was marketing employee number 3.
Were you?
Yeah, and then there were only 3, so I was the 3rd best marketing employee at the time. No, but seriously, it was just an incredible opportunity, and I learned. And I said this. I learned more about digital marketing in a time when we weren't digital, because when we speak about interactivity, I learned more about identity. I learned more about how a brand can be secure in its position if it is true to itself. Indeed. And of course, as you know, Nando's not shy to be somewhat controversial in its advertising. and yet it, for the most part, will get away with it. Why? Because it is authentic.
Indeed. And that's one of the key buzzwords of influencer marketing, really. And that's why people connect with individuals that are authentic, because they're very relatable. They see themselves in somebody else. It's not an over promoted advert being thrust down there, particularly amongst young people as well. I mean, that's one of the things that's fascinated me. A couple of stats that you might find interesting, Joe. The average, what do you reckon the average age of an influencer is?
I mean, in the US, it's probably about 18. But I don't know. I mean, I would probably say I'd probably say about 28, but I know it's going to be much higher.
It's exactly 28.
No way.
That is incredible.
No way.
Yeah, it is exactly 28.
Hang on. I don't
of all
normally
the chances, that's amazing.
I don't normally give myself an air horn, but
very good, very good. And what about the gender split? Do you reckon male, female?
Ooh, it's a good question as well. I would probably go with a female to male skew, and I'm going to go 64 to 36. That's probably a bit high. 60-40.
It's more 80-20.
And female though, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, influencer marketing is dominated by women. It really, really is. And that's what's fascinated me in a way, because, traditionally, when you think about how many, the advertising world of the 70s and 80s, how much of that was dominated by men that run those big agencies and brand campaigns. And yet, actually, when it comes to trusted communicators, it's women that really are driving that, or have the better ability at building communities, which I think is really important. And even when you look at selfies, how many of those men just don't take selfies on the same scale. Although saying that, I've just come back from Dubai and was quite shocked at seeing how many men on the beach were taking selfies. So maybe it depends on the culture and the country.
Well, I spend a lot of time now in this emerging Web3 world, and the word community is it's not just a word. I mean, it's a phenomenon. I think it is, was, and always will be. But it's interesting what you say in terms of women being better community builders. It's not counterintuitive when we think about building a home, when we think about, we also think about something that I've also learned through the show, feminine traits, which are not necessarily confined to women, but typically a feminine trait would be more associated with a woman than a man. But these are characteristics that are about bringing people together as opposed to breaking people apart. And I think that is going to always fall, on the beleaguered man trying to find his role in this world today, because we are typically the alpha males that are trying to, carve out our space and not allow people in, as opposed to a woman who is more vulnerable and more open to building bridges.
100%, totally agree with you. Yeah, and let's look at the type of content that really works. It is that openness, that some of those heartfelt messages that people suddenly want to feel engaged with. I always say, if somebody wants to become more influential, either as a brand or as an individual, why do we just do the same things we've always done? And yet, actually, when we look at our own social media, what we do on a day-to-day basis, why do we share certain content? Why do we like certain things? Well, because it is, it's inspirational, it's educational, and it's entertaining. Those are the three most important attributes when it comes to content. So why then do we do that in our social space? But when it comes to our business world, we then go back to, let's just put out a LinkedIn post. It's promoting this event. So we promote. And what we don't realize is actually it's a bit of a so what to the audience. When actually, if we've got the audience in mind always, and we actually start to be, sometimes a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more open, so it doesn't look like we're always showing off. It looks like we really understand. And this is why I think influencers that are really successful, they really understand their audience. They understand it in such a way that they're able to deliver the right type of content that's totally relevant to them. And the more niche they are, the better. And that's the reason why, brands are realizing, to have a community of potentially niche customers in one space means that their targeted advertising spend is so much better for them. And they'll get far better returns. And it's very, very cost effective way of actually communicating with an audience, because somebody else is selling their products, but selling it in an educational, fun and an entertaining way. We don't get that from a radio ad often. We don't get that from a printed media ad. And more importantly, we can't engage with that. You can't engage with it. You see something on TV and you can't actually say, oh dear, that's rubbish. In fact, most of the time, if I'm really honest, what do we do at home? We want to switch away from the ads because they're an annoyance. Whereas actually really great influencer content, because it's so niche and targeted, we get the chance to hear from those people that we like, trust, and know.
I love what you said, and it immediately made me think about when I wrote Life After the 30-Second Spot all the way back in 2004. I remember there was a little paragraph. I never forgot this. I said from ROI to RUE, which stood for relevance, utility, and entertainment. And in years that followed, I said, well, if I could rewrite it, I would replace the E of entertainment with experience. But the funny thing is, when I think about even this show, what have I done? I've created a business talk show that isn't boring, that
Absolutely.
is entertaining, and so it's the entertainment that I'd almost pushed away or pushed down. And now I realize how important it is. Obviously, the educational part and the inspirational part it's a beautiful three-pronged approach, or a trifecta, a tripod. And I think we forget sometimes how important it is to actually not bore our audience into submission.
Well, to be honest, Joseph, we're now in the attention economy. We're all fighting to get through. And bearing in mind the way the algorithm's working, your content is only going to be seen by a very small percentage of your total audience. So unless you've really got them at that early stage, then they're not gonna, and you're competing with all the other content that's going out there. And that's why really great influencers, they do their research, they plan the content, they know what works, they test and measure content, they test and measure the type of day that it's going to go out, they test and measure the length of the videos. So it's all about, they look at the different types of cover on their YouTube videos to see what's going to work. They've looked and researched other content creators, because otherwise, if you're constantly doing what you've always done, guess what? You're just going to get the same result. It's the first sign of madness, isn't it? If you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
I mean, listen, I'm going slightly mad, as Freddie Mercury would have once said. But I want to come back to that as well, because your quiz, I think I gave up halfway because I was feeling too depressed because of all the things that I know I need to be doing. But I really loved some of the questions. But we will get back to that right now if we're talking about getting to know the human being and building relationships. And again, on your website, I really loved one component about you when you talk about what is important to you, and building meaningful relationships and deep relationships is one of them. Well,
Correct.
People don't care much you know until they know how much you care. And so what we care about, Gordon, is finding out the real Gordon Glenister. Is he in fact a secret agent, or is he in fact a qualified tree surgeon? and I don't even know. Do I call you doctor? What do you do? Do you go on house calls? What does it mean to be a tree surgeon?
Oh my goodness. When you asked this question, I thought to myself, I'll put it down, but I knew there would be something funny. But that is hilarious. You have usurped anything I've ever seen before. No, before I used to run the a Promotional Merchandise Association as Director General for 11 years. But before I did that, I had my own incentives agency as well as a landscape garden design company. So I lived just outside of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. And one of the things I wanted to do was to make sure that I was able to offer all sorts of services. And one of them, it was quite a lucrative job to do. I mean, I could cut down a small apple tree and be done in 20 minutes or so and charge, a couple of $100, very, very easily be able to do that. But of course, what used to make me laugh is my insurance would only go up to certain heights. And I remember one quote, I went to see this job in North Cambridge, and it was so big. This tree was a monster. And I just said, no, I'm not doing that. So on the very big jobs, I used to get another contractor friend of mine. But yeah, so being a tree surgeon is effectively, it's just cutting down trees and pruning them, knowing where to cut the wedge. So that it falls in the right place, because what you don't want to do is have the tree fall and it fall on your conservatory or somewhere where it shouldn't.
No, you definitely do not want that. And so from now on, I'm going to call you Dr. Gordon Glenister. So we're going to respect your title. I found out something very interesting living in Connecticut, in the giant forest that is the state of Connecticut, which is if your tree falls in your neighbor's garden, it is your neighbor's financial responsibility to remove the tree and the damage, etc. But there is an exception, which is if your neighbor hires a tree surgeon and they come and they inspect your trees and then they identify a tree as dead or dying or failing, etc. Now the onus shifts to you. So if your tree falls in their forest, does it make a sound? No. If your tree falls in their property, now it's your expense. I just found that fascinating, and I still don't understand how your tree falling in somebody else's property becomes their problem. But, that's why you need a tree surgeon.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Well, often what we would have is hedges and trees that was the neighbor's property. But of course, you can chop that as much as, because you own the land up to the sky. That's how it is. So anything that crops over that space you can chop off.
Sounds like the Tower of Babel. The reason why you don't want a tree to fall is because you definitely do not want to affect your alatrent and beetroot. I still don't, your favorite vegetable is beetroot, and you once had an alatrent, and still don't know what that is, and grew over 100 too many. So I think this is a good look on you, by the way. I like the whole denim vibe.
I've got to share this with some friends of mine. Allotment is basically a piece of land that is not normally on your own property, but it's where you have a number of little
wait, the word was allotment, not alatrent.
Allotment.
Well, I certainly know what an allotment is, but we're going to have to draw swords at whether I misread or you miswrote alatrent. I was like, what is an alatrent? He's too smart for me.
Well, if it's my fault, I'm sorry, but it's allotment. Yeah. But yeah, no, I do love beetroot. Whether it's warm, hot, or cold, and one of the things is with a beetroot, you literally one plant can create so many others. So I literally had nearly 100, and I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do with all these beetroots? So I mean, I could have had beetroot sauce, beetroot soup. I was a bit like beetroot out.
Gum Shrimp Company as well. And look, after a hard day's work on the trees and growing his alatrent allotment, of course, how does he unwind? And the answer, of course, is through badminton. He loves badminton, and he met an Olympic gold medalist.
Oh dear, that is hilarious.
Aren't you glad you only sent me 3?
Yeah.
All right, so now we're going to go from the ridiculous and talk a little bit about the sublime. We're going to talk about influencer marketing strategy. You know, one of the things I saw in your quiz that I absolutely loved is, first of all, I mean, you spoke about competition, like being able to actually go and study your competitors, what's working, what isn't working. But the
100%.
thing that really caught my eye is a very customer-centric approach, which is really understanding the influencer and what their goals are and what their objectives are. And essentially, if you can make them the hero, then everything is going to fall into place. And I say this, and this is important for people that are watching, because too often we hire the influencer and they come up empty because either they were the wrong influencer or they weren't given the tools, etc. And then, of course, what do? We lambaste and minimize influencer marketing because we say this person or these people with all this influence couldn't move enough product. So I would love for you to talk about why it's so important to be an influencer first, to take an influencer first approach.
Well, it's a really good point that you raise. If you were to hire a salesperson in your company, you wouldn't then expect them to start go off on day one ill-equipped, would you? You would give them some training. You would certainly, at the very least, brief them on the features and benefits and what previous customers have said about the product or service that you're promoting. So why would it be any different? So what I always say, you know, in the influencer space, we use the word collabs. You may have seen that on Instagram bios and stuff like that, because actually that's what it is. It's a collaboration. And what you want to try and do is to make sure that that your values aspire with them. The most important thing for an influencer, quite honestly, is that they in many cases are rewarded for the content and the community that they have built, because it takes time and money to build a content plan. But also what's most important to them as well is they want to nurture and grow their audience. So anything that you can do that actually serves that purpose, the better. I always say, don't expect a silver bullet with influencer marketing. It can sometimes happen from a first level of engagement, but more often than not, it takes time to build up a relationship. And also, Joe, if you were going into a conference room for the first time and you saw somebody, you wouldn't thrust a business card in front of somebody and say, you know, my name's Joseph, can we start to do business? No, you wouldn't. You start to create a bit of a relationship. And so that's the same as doing that online. And what I often say, if you found what you believe is the right influencer for you, start to like and comment on their content, so that by the time you've reached out to them, and maybe you've done that a couple of times, you can actually make reference to what they've already achieved, because they like to be recognized as much as anything else. What they don't like more than anything else is blanket emails that look like it's been sent to hundreds and hundreds of people. And the worst is if you say something that says, "Dear influencer," you know, that's a complete no-no. It's, you know, it's "Dear Joseph, you know, I've been following your content for a while. I really like what you've done on this particular product or service. I think our products could align, and I'd love to have a conversation with you about a future campaign that we're working on. Potentially, would that be of interest to you?" So you're trying to tease out something. You're not necessarily laying everything out there.
Oh my goodness, I used to get that all the time. "Dear influencer," or "Dear last name, comma, first name," or dear at Jaffe Juice. I love your blog in particular. Then the ones that you thought were getting really smart, and they go in particular, and they would just mention your last post, and I would respond to them, and I'd go, "Really, what did you like about that post in particular?" Crickets.
Yeah, but I mean, the other thing is 70% of them won't respond to an email or direct message. And the reason why they don't do that is because a lot of the stuff that they get in is junk. And it amazes me that there are still people out there that want to promote fake followers, fake views. You can purchase a whole load of Instagram. Honest, it's really good. It will grow your audience, which makes me laugh when they even send it to me. And bearing in mind, I chair the industry body on influencer marketing. I'm vehemently opposed to anybody that buys or sells followers and views, because actually it's fraud for me. No other word to describe it. It's fraud. And so when I get that comes into me, they've not even thought about the person that they're trying to communicate with. So it's laughable, really. I mean, the other thing that is really interesting now is there are some amazing tools out there, influencer platforms that allow us to really deep dive into what we can find out about an influencer. And remember, it's not just about the influencer, it's the data behind the followers that really matters. So for example, if we wanted to promote a new restaurant opening in London, and we found what we thought was a really good foodie influencer, or somebody that's a lifestyle influencer, maybe that's got 50,000 plus followers on Instagram. So on the face of it, you know, and this person's been to restaurants before, it looks quite good. And that's all you know. You have no idea about the gender split of that audience. The influencer tools do. We're now able to find out where those influencer followers are located. So if 80% of them are based in America or the Philippines or anywhere else, then your available audience to influence is only 20%. You want a high level of engagement, which basically means that you want them to be responsive to their followers. On average, Instagram is about 1.6%. You'd ideally be looking for an influencer that has more than 3%. And you're likely to get more of that by working with a nano and micro influencer that has a much closer connection with their audience. And why this is important is because ultimately, if you want to engage influence, you want results, and you're going to get that by picking the right person that's got a really engaged community. That's the bottom line, but also a relevant one. It's no point in thinking, right, we're going to open this let's just call it a vegetarian restaurant, if hardly any of the followers are vegetarian, because actually the likelihood of you getting people to that restaurant is going to be very, very small. But if you've really done your diligence, work with a professional or a platform, or have really done your, as I say, research on Instagram, you can find vegetarian influencers. And of course, the likelihood is that their audience will be completely linked to that of the influencer.
You know, what I really like about this idea of the relevant and the engaged audience, and actually focusing not on the influencer, but on their followers, is that, again, it's taking a moment just to actually use our brains and common sense.
Exactly.
And like, I'll give you an example. I look at my kids, 21, 19, and 15. And they are, it's almost like a zombie state when they're going through what they call it, the death scroll on Instagram or TikTok. And they're liking stuff with almost not thinking, in a way. So you also have to ask yourself, where are these likes coming from? Which is not to say that my kids are not valuable as consumers, but are they in fact consumers for a product that, for example, is a healthcare product or alcohol product, or whatever the case may be? I hope not, if they're underage. And so that's the thing as well, which is not all likes are created equally.
Yeah, I mean, look, for example, you've got lots of sexy women on Instagram and TikTok.
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know.
I'll take your word
I
for
wouldn't
it.
know, really, but apparently somebody's told me. But of course, they have huge amounts of content, and what's happening there is that, are those individuals that are liking those content going to be buying those particular products, or are they just liking them because they like the look of that image or that person? So I think it's important to realize that we need to get some of this content, some of these likes and comments, you do need to take with a bit of pinch of salt, because you're never going to get everything true as you would like.
So I want to, speaking of apparently good-looking woman on Instagram, I found this quote for you, which I'm going to ask you to now unpack and deconstruct for me. And just so you know who said it, so give you a little bit of flavor. This is Mark Twain. Clothes make the man. Naked people have little or no influence on society.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, to be honest, it's a fascinating quote, isn't it? And how we
have you ever met an influential naked man?
Oh dear, I love these questions that you come. Have you just thought about this as we've been talking?
Of course.
Yes, I love it.
I mean, what do you, that question is clearly not good enough to have been thought of in advance.
Yeah, but I think it really is interesting how what is it that influences us? Why do we hit subscribe to a channel? Why do we hit follow and share? Because it talks to us as an individual, and that's why I think we talked a little on here about relevance, isn't it? When we get so much content coming at us, it's very difficult for us to cut through and find the type of stuff that we really want. But, you know, at least now we can do things on our social media that allow us to get the type of content that we want, rather than, you know, when you look at a TV channel, you know, some of those ads are annoying, they're irrelevant because they're aimed at a mass media. You look at a newspaper, how many times do we just turn over the page because it's not really interesting? Whereas actually, when you look at some of the content on social, we can almost pick the equivalent of our own newspaper, can't we? We can literally just follow the people that really make us happy or inspire us and educate us. And that, I think, is really fascinating. From a brand's point of view, in terms of getting return on investment, I mean, we talked about 11 times greater ROI on influencer marketing than almost any other media, which is phenomenal. But I will caveat that by saying when done well. And that is by having a proper influencer strategy in place, by using and working with the right influencers, making sure that you've got proper goals and objectives clearly set at the start, making sure that you've got the right type of content that is relevant to that audience. And of course, making sure that you are measuring and evaluating those campaigns so that you can optimize and check. It's a bit like actually when you've got a horse race, you know, and you've got 10 horses together, you are somewhat, because you're betting on people, you are, you know, you don't always know who's going to be the runaway success. I mean, when I worked with a company a little while ago, we were working with some YouTubers actually. And we had half a dozen of them together. And one of them was so successful at converting that he did more conversions than the other five put together. And obviously that was really fascinating. So moving forward, the client actually said, well, why don't we just work with this one influencer? We don't need the other five. We'll just work with this one because he's absolutely got it nailed with the way that he weaves this branding into his YouTube video. He's funny, he's entertaining, he's inspirational, and he gets the job done because he really does analyze the data, and he performs accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And again, it comes back to this idea of, are we playing the numbers? Are we playing the reach? Are we looking at tonnage and impressions and earned media?
Correct.
Or are we looking at relationships? I saw this unbelievable case study from the chief marketing officer at the brand EOS, the lip balm, and that all came down to working with one influencer in particular and building this relationship and really, and this was an influencer that was not open to collab. This was one that didn't want to sell out or be seen as a shill, but it was that, you know, it's just empathy. It's people don't care much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah,
it's really that simple.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, it is, you know, and I'm living, breathing example. I mean, if you look back at 2018, I would say I knew nothing around influencer marketing. I was already influential as a director general of a trade association, but I didn't really know it. I just did what I did naturally. And it wasn't until I came into the into this industry And I thought, are there any books on this subject? And realized that there weren't that many. So I wrote a book without having ever written a book in my life. But what I realized is that I was going to write this book as almost a compendium of knowledge and information. And so what I did do is I interviewed some of the most influential people within the industry. So one of my really great tips in life is to be influential, is to associate and align yourself with other highly influential people. So when I came to launch that book in March 21, it was hugely successful, but also because a lot of the people that were in that had substantial audiences were privileged to be asked to contribute and shared it on their own social platforms and everything else along the lines of it. And when I showed you the book that was translated into Portuguese, well, the same company in Brazil wanted to make a documentary film. So they spoke to me about doing this, and I'm thinking, they said, would you like to be part of this film? I thought, oh, wow, that sounds amazing. Of course I would. And I flew over to Brazil in June last year, and I'm not joking, the premiere to this film in a Sao Paulo night cinema, the tickets to that sold out in just 1 minute. 1 minute. They go nuts in Brazil for influencer marketing. They have a higher conversion rate from influencers to consumer purchases than anywhere else in the world, which is just amazing, really. So I was like 4 hours signing books.
No, it's fascinating to me. Look, I went to Rio for Carnival, and I was in the Brahma suite at the Sambadrome. And Megan Fox came in, and Neymar came in, and so they bring the celebrities, and I'm just wondering, where do you see the evolution of this going? I look at it and I say, well, Web 1 was celebrities, Web 2 influencers, so I call them web celebrities. What is the evolution of influence look like? Is it top-down celebrity? Is it bottom-up micro influencer, or is it something else?
Well, I think I've been fascinated with the growth of fan consumers, we talked a little bit earlier about nano influencers. Those are people between 1 and 10,000 followers on Instagram. And it's not now about necessarily huge scale. It's about engagement and relevance. You can argue that by having a campaign with a large number of fan consumers, the people that would have gone and bought the product anyway, that don't actually necessarily want to pay for it. They just want to be recognized. They want to be part of something really cool and great and exciting. So there are influencer platforms now that will gift these people product without payment, and they will happily promote it left, right, and center to their audiences because they love it anyway. As opposed to maybe a celebrity influencer that literally is largely all about the big bucks because they've got agents, getting a share and a cut of all of that. That said, of course, we shouldn't underestimate the power of a celeb. I mean, look how many celebrities now have created their own brands, particularly in the beauty and fashion industry. Ronaldo has got over 500 million followers on Instagram, which is insane, isn't it? If you think about the pull that has, he can command $1 million a post and some.
What's also interesting is he signed for Al-Nassr, the Saudi Arabian football club. But the real, this has been a very interesting byline. By the way, do you like the? You're now officially the sponsor of the show.
I think it's fantastic.
I got lots of bells and whistles here. But so this is interesting. He when he signed for them, they had 800,000 followers on Instagram. I think at last count, they have over 10 million.
Wow.
And there's a mention that, part of his contract is to help Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Greece pitch the World Cup in, I guess, 2030. But this is just an influencer marketing strategy, and a really and maybe a really smart one.
Well, if you think about it, £1 million a post sounds like a lot of money, but not to get 10 million followers, that's and relevant ones at that. So, I mean, when I talk about influencer campaigns, I often say to people, have a mix and definitely have a campaign. The ones that don't work are the ones that said, oh, we tried this influencer, we sent him or her some product, and it didn't really work. So as you said earlier, they then have a misguided view of whether or not influencer marketing is going to work or not. And yet, having a bunch of influencers together, maybe 10 or 20, what matters more than anything else is start small, test and measure, and then grow. A lot of, if you've not done influencer marketing before, start with a $5,000 to $10,000 budget. Keep it small, keep it tight, and learn, and then you can then amplify and scale up. Because once you've got that secret sauce formula, boosh, you're away.
11.7 million followers they now have.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, I mean, so note to self, Joe, sign Ronaldo to. Welcome to Joseph Jaffe's Not Famous with my co-host Ronaldo.
That would be a huge coup.
Yeah, how's that working out for you, Joe? But yeah, so like another example was Charlie D'Amelio working with Dunkin' Donuts. Also, the growth in their social media accounts was off the charts. Yeah. And so I just like it because it's let's say a non-traditional use of influencer marketing as opposed to product, ROI. This became something else, which is a legitimate way to become part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think also where an influencer can play a big part, a celebrity, is when it's cause related as well.
Sure.
Where there's real purpose behind it. I mean, a lot of the skincare companies now, is it Nivea? I can't remember which one, but they're all about a body positive image. So then you can get celebrities that they're in a position of huge influence. So actually having a big name behind their campaign to front it can be hugely powerful. And then what can happen is then beneath that, you can have a lot of foot soldier influencers that are gifting and talking about it. So you've got somebody at the top, almost like the Pied Piper, leading the charge with others.
Again, it's going to come down to credibility and authenticity. And so I'll do a little bit of a reframe. So from the top down celebrity to the bottom up web celebrity to the nano consumer to the or nano influencer to the fan consumer, which is what Gordon's speaking about. Something that I also wrote about in Flip the Funnel was what I call the super consumer. And essentially all I was saying is the people that talk about you to a lot of people, right? That's the 190 or what's it called? The 990, the Jakob Nielsen, this idea that there's a small group responsible for a lot of buzz. And then the people who buy from you a lot, the 20% responsible for 80% of your revenue. In my point of view, and I think it's not dissimilar to the fan influencer or the fan consumer, is your most credible influencers are your customers.
Absolutely.
So if you can find them, Seth Godin would say, turn the funnel into a megaphone. If they already have a big audience, get out the way and let them do what they do best. And if they don't, give them the audience, amplify their audience. That's the way to an influencer's heart.
No, it really is. And another thing, just to add to that, one of the things that people make mistakes in is that they provide overly scripted briefs. So it's we'd like you to say this, this, and this for our particular product. And it's almost like, overbriefing. There's a difference between making sure that the influencer has all the right features, benefits, all that sort of stuff, and different product lines. Also, how to pronounce the product. You don't want somebody to go and create a video and suddenly find that actually, is it Nike or is it Nike or Nike, for example? That could be really different in the way that the video comes out. So making sure those little details are are dotted and crossed before they come through. But you really can. I was just trying to think about what I was going to say now. Just forgot my train of thought.
Well, listen, I got you. I got you, man. Let me tell you. There was something else that that popped into my mind. We're living now in this ridiculously surreal world of chat GPT and AI generated content and AI generated maybe even influence. What are your thoughts about, we've spoken a lot about humans and humanity and taking the time and the power of one. But then on the other hand, you've got these counter trends and forces that are focused on automation and efficiency and streamlining. And now with AI, being able to almost create these additional fake layers. So where does AI and automation, what role do they play in where you see this whole ecosystem unfolding?
Well, it's an interesting development, isn't it? I mean, we've had computer-generated influencers for a while that have appeared in all sorts of marketing campaigns. So they're not anything new. I think that the trouble, maybe I'm a bit old school. You and I, we believe in having solid relationships. So I think it's an age thing as well. Whereas actually, particularly amongst more younger folk, they want idea and product to delivery as quickly as possible. So I don't know really where I stand with it all, to be honest, and I haven't seen enough of it in play. I know that it's very much on everybody's talking about this chat GPT thing, but I mean, yes, the problem we've got so often now is that trying to get products and service at the lowest price point is where the big companies are being forced to make savings everywhere. So what's happening is how can we trim our marketing costs to the lowest point? How can we get our products and services to the consumer as quickly, as efficiently as we possibly can? And I worry that, look, for example, we've started to see vinyl come back again now, haven't we? Because there are still people that miss the relationship that they had with those things. And so automation isn't all good. I think it has to be steady, it has to be relevant, and it has to be for the right industry.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And yet we will still continue to find this tension between quantity and quality, which has been really a common theme today. The nano, the smaller the audience, the smaller and most cohesive, most homogeneous, the stronger the relationships, the more credible, the more persuasive, but it's going to require more work. And of course,
how do these independent shops, for example, make it work? Well, they create better ingredients. They don't want to try and compete with the lowest price point. They're all about customer experience, because that's the only way that they can compete. They haven't got the mass production. So it's about finding your market, understanding your target audience. Don't try and be all things to all people. Make sure that you've got the right products and services that really do stand out.
So in this new world that we live in, where even getting into Web3, where there are even more layers of masks, avatars, etc., one of the things that you had posed is this question: can anyone be an influencer? Can anyone be an influencer? And what are why would anyone want to be an influencer? And if they want to be an influencer, which apparently is what every kid wants to be in America now, what are some of the tips, to kind of guide you on the right path?
Well, a lot of people ask me about this question, and I say to people, because particularly younger people, and in fashion and beauty, I want to go on these amazing trips. What they've been drawn into is the allure of the lifestyle. And yet, really, what matters more than anything else is you need to start by defining your passion. The most successful influencers today didn't start off with an Instagram yesterday. They have literally spent a lot of time and effort in perfecting their content, nurturing their audience. I mean, it is more difficult now. We've got more competition. We've got greater algorithms changing all of the time, which makes it harder. But what I would say is consistently posting and testing and measuring how your audience reacts to you. Having a look at your competitors within your niche is super important. Making sure that you're ahead of the trends. Start to develop interesting types of content that you know would work. You know, for example, if I was a butter brand, I might try butter sculpture, you know, and create some really great video around butter sculpture, and then have the butter pack perhaps somewhat in as part of the video. You know, think about being different. Think about the type of content that you like to see within your own niche, and why. Why do you share it? Why do you like it? Why do you comment it? And whatever you do, take those attributes and apply them to your own content.
And if you were reading between the lines or paying attention, you would have heard Gordon just dropped a little Easter egg, a little gem, because his new book is going to be called "If I Was a Butter Brand." This is how I would become an influencer. Forget Anna Delvey. This is all about how to become the story of how I became the world's #1 butter brand influencer. I would buy that book. I would buy that book. No, I love it as we wind down. And by the way, please go and take the test. Go to gordonglenister.com and take the test. Are you ready to get more from influencer marketing? Take the success quiz and discover how inept you are, which is what I discovered as well. I'm like, no, I'm not doing any of these things. Bugger you, I'm going to abandon ship, abandon cart. But I knew what I needed to do. You know, at the end of the day, again, if you were paying attention, what you would have taken away is that it isn't about overnight success, just add fake followers, because that is a fraud. It is about passion. It is about discovering your passion, investing in your passion over enough time, endurance, consistency, authenticity. That's how you become the world's #1 butter brand influencer. Am I right, Gordon?
Oh my God. This has been the best podcast I have ever been on, Joe. I'm not joking. And I've been on a few.
What? Just hang on a second. Let me make sure this is being recorded. Listen,
I love it. I love it.
It's very easy when you have a famous guest like you and a secret agent. Dr. Gordon Glenister, a global influencer marketing expert, tree surgeon, allotment, rhubarb, radish, and turnip grower, badminton lover, and more importantly, the author of a book that matters, a book that counts. Please go and check out more about him on gordonglenister.com, and you can find it. He might even be clothed there as well, because he reads Mark Twain. It's been a real pleasure to meet you and connect with you, and I appreciate the very, very kind words as well. Just make sure that you send that in triplicate, checks in the mail, as the saying goes. I know that you have at least one new fan today. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
We will be back soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.